Which Utah resort is for you? Utah has tons of ski resorts, and as well as they have legendary snow, which gives you a lot of options to look at when you're making this decision. Which Utah resort do you want to go when you visit Utah to go skiing or snowboarding? In this video, I wanted to talk about what I would consider to be the 4 most popular ski resorts that Utah has. Just give sort of a brief summary of each resort, some pros, cons, my favorite things about each resort. I do have full reviews coming out of each of these resorts, so if that is something that you're interested in, make sure you subscribe. Click that notification bell, you'll be notified as I get those resort reviews out for you. But I want to just give a brief kind of summary of each resort and let you know what they have to offer and what stands out about each one of them to me. Also, in this video, I'm gonna rank them from my least favorite to favorite. Make sure you watch the entire video so you can see which Utah resort was my favorite one that we visited while we were in Utah. All right, let's take it from the bottom. Park City. This one, the reason I'm doing it first is not because it's actually my least favorite, it's because we only visited it for the day, but that being said, in that one day we were there, we liked it enough. We're planning to go back and do a full trip just to ski or do a full trip just to snowboard at Park City. So that's why I wanted to include it on this list. The whole town of Park City is massive. You had tons of shopping, different areas, tons of things to do. And it looked like a great place for not only like a skier or snowboarder, but if you're traveling with a family, I think that looks like the spot to go to because you're gonna have everything in one go. Whether you have, like, if you're like me, my wife travels with me and she doesn't snowboard. So I like to go somewhere where she can have something to do as well while I'm having fun on the mountain. And Park City is gonna tick that box for me. Out of all these, I think Park City is the best Utah resort if you have a non-skier or snowboarder in your party. We walked around the town for a whole day, and like I said, it made such a great impression on us. We scrapped our plans where we were gonna go next year. We're gonna go to Park City instead and check it out. So I will have a full review of that coming out much later, but I did want to include it on this list just to say that the whole town and resort looks awesome. It's massive, and I really just in general like the layout of it. So Park City, definitely, if you're wanting everything, the whole ski village experience, Park City is gonna be the place to go. All right, now as far as the ones that I actually did snowboard at. First one on this list, Snowbird. Biggest standout about Snowbird to me is the views. The views at Snowbird are absolutely epic. It has some of the most, if not the most beautiful views I have ever seen at any ski resort. It looks like you're literally taking a step out into like Alaska or something. The views are just so vast, awesome. I can't stress enough how cool it is to actually be out there and see it. The videos of this aren't gonna do justice just how epic that scenery is. You also get to ride through the Peruvian Tunnel, which is one of the most unique chairlift slash magic carpet slash museums you're ever gonna see while you're on your ski or snowboard. It's really, really cool. If you're there, take the time to do it, even if it has a wait. Go through it at least once, because not only is the tunnel cool, but it spits you out into my favorite area of Snowbird, which was Mineral Basin. Hands down, if I was gonna go back to Snowbird, Mineral Basin is where I would wanna spend all my time. It's just so, the runs out there are vast and epic, and it's like you can choose your own adventure. It's a lot of fun out there. You also have the massive tram that takes you up to the top, which is really cool if you haven't ridden a tram like that. Snowbird has one. The views from the tram are epic, as well as just when you're on that very top. Really, really cool. With the exception of Park City, on this list, Snowbird has the most skiable acreage of any of the resorts that I'm gonna talk about. And if you are a skier, it's also connected to Alta, which opens up even more terrain. Unfortunately, snowboarders, we can't go over there. So there is that as well. If you are a skier, you can kind of hop back and forth between both, and it's gonna give you a little bit more acres to explore. It also has really cool facilities. The facilities at Snowbird are something that stood out to me. When you get there and you walk in through the front door, I wish I took more video of it. It feels like you're at this just like giant resort on the side of the Alps or something. It's a really cool feeling walking through it. It made me feel like I was just at this big epic resort in the Alps. I really, really like that. Now, as far as cons, out of these resorts I'm gonna talk about, Snowbird was the most crowded. It's the first one we had to wait in lines for. With that heavy crowd also, it got skied out a little bit faster. So we didn't have the best snow conditions at Snowbird. So I would like to go back to see it with, like on a powder day. I think it would be worth going back, but it does get skied out a little bit faster. It also feels more catered to skiers than snowboarders. I don't know, it feels like if you weren't taking the steepest, gnarliest runs out there, like everything else seemed kind of like a cat track. And like all the blues on the maps were cat tracks. And as a snowboarder, cat tracks kind of suck. They're not a whole lot of fun, and plus moguls aren't really that enjoyable on a snowboard either. So where it does get skied out a little bit faster, on those steep runs, you get lots of moguls really fast, and The day we were there, again, we didn't have the best snow conditions, but it just felt like everything was either cat tracks or icy moguls, with the exception of the Mineral Basin area. Again, that was my favorite. For a snowboarder, I think Mineral Basin is like a dream out there. There's so much opportunity and so much potential out there. So definitely snowboarders, if you're going to Snowbird, Mineral Basin area stands out to me, hands down. So who would I say Snowbird is for? I would say it's for the intermediate, more advanced rider, because the majority of the runs are relatively steep, icy, and it's a really, like, it has some gnarly terrain if you're out there looking for it. If you're wanting the gnarliest, steepest runs in Utah, so far, that seems to me like the place to go. For families, I would personally look elsewhere. You do have a little bit more like shopping and things at the bottom, and it does have some great family runs, but I don't know, it just feels so steep and crowded to me. I feel like the other resorts on this list might be a little more family oriented. My second favorite resort in Utah that we visited, one that I definitely want to go back to, Brighton. Brighton is like a free rider's dream. I have never seen so much just wide open terrain full of side hits, rock drops, cliff drops, log drops, tree runs. There was so much terrain at Brighton. It's just like the whole mountain feels like a massive playground. It's a really great time. It also seems really progressive friendly because it has so many of those features. So you can stay on the main run if you want to, but you have plenty of options if you dip off for side hits or venture off a little bit. Like, there's tons of progressive features out there, and it's really easy to kind of like ramp your way up to it. It also, on this list, is the only resort that has full green runs from the very top all the way down to the bottom. So if you are traveling with families or some more beginners, I think that's a really great thing, is that you're still able to actually go all the way up to the top with those beginners so they can get those epic mountain views you get from the top as well, and then ride down with them. If I had to give Brighton a con, I would say the signage could be a little bit better. There were several times like you had a sign right at the beginning, and then once you got further into the run, there was no signs or anything, and we didn't know where to go. It's also a resort that I would say the phrase pre-ride, re-ride, and free ride definitely come into play. You definitely want to know where you're going, because there were several times that we almost went off some cliffs. Luckily we didn't. There are some larger features out there, so it definitely helps to kind of know where you're going. And so we were a little bit timid after the first time we about went off a cliff, and slowly kind of ramped back up. So the more you ride it, I think the more fun it would be, or find somebody that knows where they are going, because the terrain out there is an absolute blast. We mainly stayed off of the Millie lift. There was so much stuff there and so much to play on. We had a full day there. Definitely want to go back and check out the rest of the mountain, because it seemed like a really sick mountain. So who would I say it's for? I would say it's for the person who's looking to take their riding to the next level, or kind of get that backcountry experience, but stay in bounds, just because of the sheer wide openness of the terrain and the options you kind of have. It felt like you could pretty much go anywhere in the resort you wanted. So that was one thing that's my favorite type of resort, is where you have more options than just sticking to the groomers, and you can kind of dip off and be able to explore a little bit more. I think the higher your skill level, the more fun you're gonna have here, but there's also something for everyone. So I think this would be a great place for anybody from beginner all the way to advanced, as well as families. It felt like there was a lot of options and accommodations for that as well. What would I consider my #1 absolute favorite Utah resort to be? Hands down, Solitude. Solitude gave me the best days of snowboarding I think I've ever had in my life. Best snow conditions, best powder riding, and it was just truly epic. I absolutely love the resort and all the terrain that Solitude had. Favorite days on a snowboard I've ever had. It had a good blend of a lot of terrain. It had lots of options to dip into the trees, which tree snowboarding is, that's like, if you're not snowboarding trees, what are you doing? That's the best form of snowboarding there is. So Solitude had tons of options to get down in the trees, but it also still had plenty of wide open terrain, as well as some rock drops, cliff drops, all that good stuff. It just felt like it had a good blend of everything. It also had the lowest crowds out of all these resorts. We never really had to wait in a line. We could just hop on the lift and go, and you had plenty of lift options as well. So if we did see one built up a little bit more, one area was a little more crowded, we'd just take another lift and pretty much walk on. Even on a powder day, we weren't the first ones on the mountain, but we still had no lines. You know, if we went to certain lifts, we had no lines the entire time, which was awesome. I mean, with those lower crowds, that powder gets tracked out much slower than some of the other resorts, because I know, like, if you go to Colorado, the powder's tracked out within 2 hours. Well, at Solitude, we found powder the whole time we were there. We had 2 big dumps of 20-inch powder days, but we rode powder the whole week because there was just tons of powder stashes to be found in the trees if you know where to look. So definitely a resort that I plan to go back to. Hands down, second favorite resort I've ever been to and favorite riding I've ever done. absolutely loved it. If I had to knock it for a con, not so much the riding. I would say there's not as many food options in the evening hours. It's got tons of options for lunch, and it does have several for dinner, but it feels like a lot closes soon as lunchtime's over. So when it does, like if you're staying in the village, it felt like at nighttime your food options were a little bit more limited. Again, the ones that we did go to for dinner, the food was really, really good, but it would have been nice to have some more options where we were there for a full week. Who is Solitude for? I think there is anyone and everyone. I think there's terrain for all skill levels. It's great for families with that lower crowd, especially you don't have to worry about, you know, high speed people running your kids over. And it has a good blend of terrain from easy to advanced. It's got a really even mix of all, you know, green, blue, black, all that. It's a really solid mix. I also think it's for if you're looking to get the most powder lines or the best tree runs, Solitude is the place to go because that powder just lasts a little bit longer and doesn't get tracked out as fast. I hope you all found this video helpful. If you have questions about any of these resorts, hit me up in the comments below and I'll do my best to get back to you. Like I snowboarded Snowbird, Brighton, Solitude, in that order, least favorite to favorite. Park City we loved, but I haven't snowboarded yet, but we are going back and making a full trip. Utah the powder there is just unreal. If you haven't experienced it yet, you're missing out. Truly is like a game changer. So also, I will be doing a full in-depth review of each one of these resorts where I'm gonna cover a whole lot more. So if you are interested in that, again, subscribe. That way you can check all those out as they come out. I'll be able to cover a whole lot more talking about each one. But in this one, I just wanted to give a rough overview. So if you're somebody looking, kind of getting an idea ballpark where you wanna go, hopefully this can help you out. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch me. Hope you're getting some great snow wherever you are. I'm Alex from Boards, Bikes, and Hikes. See you on the slopes.